Alrighty, howdy neighbors, and welcome back to our life. We are going to a charity event, and we are looking fresh to death. Carefully headed down the stairs and into the living room, where your moms were waiting for your appearance. As you entered, they both stood from the couch and came over to you, smiling broadly. It was so wonderful, Viola.
Nice.
And very mature, too. I know, right? They continued to coo and fuss over you until you managed to brush them off. Ma took Mom by the arm and held her close, the two of them admiring you proudly. You wondered why they were making such a big deal. Liz came over to you and smirked, as if she was reading your very thoughts in your head. You'll have to get used to it one day, Viola. The baby of the family, after all. Ma came over and gave you one last hug. Before you knew, another pair of arms wrapped around you, and then a third, with Mom and Liz giggle as they hug you tight. I hope you have so much fun tonight. We won't wait up for you. Stay out as long as you need. You're old enough now. With the last wave goodbye, you left your family and approached the front door. It was time. You stepped out into the night and closed the door behind you gently, and looked out across the street. Interesting. I was not expecting a pattern. Not sure how I feel about the pattern. Cove was standing there in the street. His eyes met yours immediately, and he, as if he had been watching your house for the moment you came out, smiled bashfully. Hey, hi. Took a chance to check over his outfit as he walked across the way to meet you. It's formal for sure, but it didn't look overly posh. It made sense for him, and honestly, a sight for sore eyes. He was always beautiful to you. With a growing smile, he stepped closer, his cheeks reddening all the way down his neck.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming with me, and for dressing really nice for this. Your outfit is just perfect. Fuck off! Really amazing tonight. You glanced over him from head to toe, noting that his shirt, pants, and shoes were all shiny and new. He had put in some effort, and it showed. He didn't stop himself from looking down in order to inspect his outfit now that you pointed out, to avoid having to face you directly after you did. But turning away did nothing to disguise how transparently pleased he was with that compliment. Thank you. Then he shook his head, glancing back toward the garage, and throwing a thumb over his shoulder spoke.
Come on.
Should probably get going. Wouldn't want to be late to such a grown-up event, right? Yeah, let's go. We headed over to Cove's car together, helping in and strapping on your seatbelts. You're on your way. The event was being held in a place that you had never been before. You brought up the location on your phone to help Cove navigate there. It took some time to find the right address, and once you were met with a task of finding a parking spot. Though you were on time, it seemed like everybody else had already showed up and claimed spaces. Eventually found a suitable place, before realizing it required payment. Cove covered the amount, taking a ticket from the machine and leaving it in the dashboard of the car. Oh fuck, we did not dress appropriately for this. Oh Jesus! Oh no! Despite the small holdup, you managed to ultimately make it to the event and confirm you were on the guest list before being shown to a dining area. Cove whistled low as he looked around, taking in the extravagance of the room. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling. The entire place was decked out in beautiful oceanic displays. You were stunned yourself. It was extremely high class, even more so than you had expected. Nice. You had to be impressed by the work that had gone into making everything look this lovely, and how everyone had dressed up in their best outfits for the night. Girl, I didn't. What the fuck? Seeing Cove smile as he took in the sights made you think he must be feeling the same way. The sound of your names being called out echoed over the din of the room. You looked around, you recognized a couple from the organization leaders looking your way. They approached you both in greeting, giving you a welcoming smile and hello. Oh, Viola, we're glad to see you make it, especially after all the hard work you've done to make this night happen.
Of course.
Definitely, I wasn't gonna miss it. Hi. It was nice to see some familiar faces, and it felt so accepted here. Well, thank you for being part of the team. Now get the fuck off. You're our best power couple, that's for sure. The best power couple. You're always welcome to participate in more activity. And when they come up, he'll let an awkward, breathy laugh and rub the back of his neck. Thanks. Cove shrugged then, he's darting around the place with an awkward look.
So...
I guess we should talk to more people. There's not much else to do in an event like this. Found your way into groups of people who were standing around chatting while some light music played in the background. Servers with large silver trays were gliding between the guests, offering drinks and... What? Canopies? Drinks and canopies. The fuck is a canopy in this sense? Cove approached various people as you wound your way through the guests. He managed broaching new conversation as well. You weren't so good in social situations yourself, mostly followed Cove around and joined in on his conversations. Luckily, everyone there that night was polite. The sound of the microphone crackling came from the podium on the other end of the room. Someone you had assumed must be the host of the evening, asking everyone to sit down in preparation for the meal and speeches. You and Cove looked for your table, finding it easily enough by little name cards that were placed delicately beside the napkins. A few others joined you at the table, though they weren't anyone that you had recognized. The host was still speaking as people were settling, starting off the speeches by giving a welcome to everyone attending. She went on to provide some information about ORCA, which you suppose was for the guests who weren't a part of the organization, and the purpose of the fundraiser tonight. ORCA's goals, as she explained it, were to aid in the conservation and restoration of oceans and beaches. There were many people who had helped to make the group as successful as it was. And she read off a list of several volunteers who had worked on making the event happen. Cove's name was one of the first to come up. His chest puffed out in pride at that. Her name then came up a little further down the list. He was smiling from ear to ear at that mention. As you continued to thank the large donors for the event, you checked over at Cove. He was still grinning happily to himself and tapping his finger over the tops of his knees. Pretty pleased to have been mentioned by name. Excited for him. He worked so hard to make this event happen. It was the least that he deserved. While the host continued speaking, several servers dressed in black, oh fuck, were setting the first course of the menu in front of the guests. One of the servers set down a plate in front of you, and you thanked them quietly before looking over the dish with interest. You recognized the dish as a simple Caesar salad. The host quickly wrapped up the end of her speech, thanking everyone once more before inviting you all to begin your meal. Everyone who had included a special dietary note when signing up for the event received a vegan or vegetarian version. And there were also small baskets of bread set around the table. You just ate the salad. He walked down his salad before munching on a breadstick, probably devouring that as well. The next part comes out soon, and is bigger. He mumbled to himself as he reached over for another piece of bread. He glanced around the table, and you follow his line of sight at curiosity, noting that everyone else was still eating the salad. Stuffed his hand midair, quickly pulled it back, and resting it on his lap without taking another breathstick after all. It's clear that he was starting to feel unsure of himself, and looked a little out of place. So his arms had turned away from them to you. Hey, did you like the salad? It was really good. Can't wait to see what else they serve. His gaze remained purposefully tunneled on you, as if he was trying not to think about the rest of the table might be doing. The best I can give it, Cove. It's okay. Oh, thanks. Cove spoke quietly as he took the bread out of your hand, looking choked up as your reassurance. He munched away on it happily, seeming much more at ease. It wasn't much longer until the main course arrived. Various meat, chicken, steak, and veggie dishes were being served throughout the room. The red scents wafted through the room, making your mouth water. Steak. It was nice that you had given the option of how you liked your steak to cook, and the meal on the plate you seemed perfect to your taste. Cove had gone by the steak, and when he started to dig in, he was completely absorbed by his meal. You flicked something at him while he was off guard. Oh, if I do that, that'd be bad. That would stop him. Do it! Send a pea and a clear shot on your plate, taking the time to get the angle right. Nothing going to notice what you were doing as long as the food was in front of him. Oh, it was perfect. You struck the tiny thing and it hit him directly at the side of the cheek. He pulled it upright in shock, almost choking on his mouth full of food. The look he gave you was far from impressed, but his eyes still had a glint of amusement. You threw your gaze away from him innocently, as though you had done nothing at all. When you peeked to see if you had gotten off scot-free, he rolled his eyes and returned to his meal. Took a light leap beneath your breath, and he did the same, thoroughly entertained. Then it eventually ended, and last of all was dessert. A lemon sorbet that had been partially dyed blue. Ew. A mix of white with bold streaks of blue made the little scoop look like a ball of rolling ocean waves. The effect was pretty, but the serving size was small. Perhaps it was the price to pay for artistry. Turned to Cove and found him pouting a little at the size of it. In dessert, it took him only a few bites to polish it off. Again, other people around the table had barely even begun eating. An unimpressed air settled over him as he sat back in his chair, sipping his water unhappily. He had more dessert later. Gave him an encouraging smile. He looked at you sheepishly, embarrassed to have been caught sulking over such a thing. He fumbled for a defense. It's just really good, that's all. Now it's gone. I'm okay. Slight grin, he shrugged to show that he was really fine. Just like a bite of mine. He scooped up a spoonful of your sorbet and offered it to him, while you handed it beneath it to avoid any drips. His eyes widened as he eyed the dessert hungrily, surprised by the offer. Recovering quickly, he leaned forward over the table, lifting out of the chair a little as he ate the treat from your spoon. Sat back, humming happily with his mouth full. He couldn't help but smile at the sight. Cove swallowed the foe? I think that's how they spell foe. The faux ocean. And let a satisfied sigh. Even though it wasn't that much, the simple fact that he'd gotten more hit the spot. Thanks. You're welcome. We're pleased to see he was perkier, and you went back to eating the rest of your dessert. Another person from ORCA got up on stage to make a speech as everyone was nearing the end of their meal. He spoke mostly about the individual projects that the organization was working on, and their plans for the near future, as well as encouraging anyone who was interested to consider volunteering. Cove bent forward over the table, his chin placed in his hand, listening attentively to the words. As they came to a conclusion, everyone gave them a round of applause. Cove caught your eye and smiled. He wondered what would happen now. Oh, look at the floor! Oh, hell yeah! Oh, I wish I can get this thing off. This, what's it called? The bubble. Because if you can see, the flooring, because of these, now looks like the ocean. Yeah! And the lights dimmed. A couple of spotlights came on, projecting a water-like effect around the room. The guests gushed over the ambiance, and he looked around with wide eyes at the ripples of the walls. The DJ that had previously been playing some soft mood music in the background announced that the floor was open for dancing, slowly turning the volume up so it drifted through the space. As he glanced at Cove, his eyebrows had shot up and he mumbled quietly. I didn't know there'd be dancing. It doesn't make sense now that I think about it. He even has the water effect on him! Aw, that's awesome. He gave an awkward laugh as you both watched as people rose from their seats. It was clear that now that many of the donors were couples. A small crowd had started to form on the dance floor, and the DJ played a romantic song to get everybody started off. With his gaze float over the small sea of people who were moving onto the floor, his hands twisted in his lap and his lips pulled into a tight line. Then with a breath and lifted his head, he turned to you. Well, want to dance with me? I'm just gonna ask you the same thing. He let out a stuttering laugh, relieved. Oh, that's good. Accepting Cove's outstretched hand, you rose from your seats together and stepped out onto the floor. When you had found a spot for yourselves amongst the other guests, you turned to face him, standing close. Cove gave you a small smile as you looked directly at him in front of you. He seemed a little nervous. I don't know how to dance, not for real. He admitted with a slight squeeze of your hand and a sheepish look. He gave him a reassuring grin and nudged a little closer to him still. It's okay, I know. With a familiar face of full affection, he let go of you and raised his arms to slide both of your hands behind your neck. You wrapped your arms around him in response. Together you gently swayed to the music, moving your feet in time to the delicate beat. It was nice just being here like this, in each other's arms. You didn't have to worry about whether you were in the right steps or not. There was always a way to make it work between the two of you. Cove leaned his head in nearer to you, his forehead so close to yours that they almost touched. His breath was warm and he let out a contented sigh, tickling your skin. You really do look good tonight. Such a beautiful woman. You blushed at the comment and turned your face away, embarrassed by the grin that your face was spreading so widely. Having a nice time? I hope you did. Ew. We're not doing this. This sucks. I'm here with you, so yeah. He let out a breathy giggle. His eyes stayed locked on yours, studying you with unmistakable adoration. Thank you for staying. You're still here, just like you promised you would be. Your heart felt light as you continued to sway whilst holding your most beloved person. So glad you'd be able to share this moment like this with him. A lot has happened, huh? You nodded faintly. You weren't sure if you meant just today, this summer, or the entire time knowing each other. It didn't really matter. It was true either way. Thinking back on the years that you and Cove had been neighbors, it was difficult to even try to reflect on it all the time.
I'm so glad.
I'm glad we ended up here. He gave you a soft look as you beamed, knowing that could also mean many things. From his tone, you were certain he didn't only mean here at this event. It was more than that. Chuckled happily at the two of you and the long adventure you've been on. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. You loved him, fully and completely you did. His smile widened as he pressed his body against yours, resting his head at the crook of your neck, stroking the back of your head with his fingers. You tightened your grip on him and let your head fall against his shoulders. As the night drifted on, you held each other tight, swaying to the music as if you were the only ones in the room. He was at a loss of words for a long time, enjoying the feeling. But you didn't mind, you were also enjoying it. The party eventually started to wind down, and at last it came to an end. When the main lights turned on, and you had to blink against the brightness of them, making sure you still had Cove in your sights. When a final speaker came up to the podium on the stage, thanking all the guests for coming and wishing everyone a good night. It was bittersweet to see it come to a close. Your time with Cove here was precious. At least the memories could be so brought with you. Giving this space one more look, you walk together with Cove out to the parking lot. The other guests are doing the same, so you got stuck in a bit of a crowd. Though Cove was so tall you can always see him, and it was easy enough not to get separated. The parking lot itself was quite big, and even more noticeable now with fewer cars blocking the view. It took a little while to actually locate Cove's car across its expanse. Eventually you found it. The two of you were bundled inside the vehicle and buckled up. You were buckled in the vehicle and then buckled up. The trip home was quiet, as you both silently reflected back on the experience. The event had been the biggest night of the year for ORCA, and now it's all over just like that. Outside your window, the surroundings soon became familiar. You found yourselves back in your neighborhood. Cove pulled the car into the driveway and put it in park before letting out a relieved breath. Home sweet home. Yeah. After climbing out of the car, you walked slowly down to the road, Cove coming over to stand beside you. You stopped in the middle of the street, right between your house and his, and turned to him, finding him in the process of opening his mouth to speak. Strangely, he clamped his lips together, as though he had suddenly thought better of it. Thanks for taking me tonight. Thanks for coming with me. Came in for a hug. You went forward and wrapped your arms around him, and he returned the gesture, squeezing tight.
Night.
Night. With the last wispy smile, he left toward his front door. Figuring you shouldn't linger in the street for much longer, you crossed the remainder of the road and did the same. When you reached your house, you pulled out your keys and stuck them into the door, trying your best to be silent about it. Opening the door a crack, you turned back and looked at Cove from over your shoulder. Your brows lifted in surprise to see he was doing the same, holding his front door open, but waited for you to go inside before he did. You shared an amused smile before you both stepped into your own houses, locking the door behind you. It was quite late, so everyone else was already asleep. As quiet as a mouse, you tiptoed up to your bedroom and changed out of your formal clothes into your pajamas. Now that you were finally home, you were exhausted. You brushed your teeth and got ready for bed and darkness before crawling under the covers and letting out a heavy breath. It was still strange to think about how that was it. The build-up to an event had felt like so much. Now it was completely behind you. Your mind was busy and rapid, yet muddled thoughts as you faded closer and closer to sleep. As unconsciousness creeped up on you, you felt more content. It was a big deal, but there would be more in the future. You can accept what it had been, and you could dream about what you'd get to experience next. And you were taken away from your dreams, right back into reality by a sound. Your eyebrows pinched together, fully unprepared to be part of the waking world again. The day was over, and it had been an eventful one. But you heard another noise. It was tapping. Get the hell off of my window! Go to bed. Your eyes flew open. The window. There was tapping that came from your window. Cove. You slowly force yourself to get up. She's very hard with getting up. You pried yourself out of bed. Your blanket was flung back. You rolled and then sank to the floor. First for a second there, to let your half-asleep brain process the fact that you were mostly on your feet now, Another tap at the window. Hold on. You shuffled toward the window, something akin to a zombie. Barely you opened the window and there was Cove. You blinked at him. You had not been surprised to find Cove awkwardly crouched to your window ledge. However, you were taken aback to see that he was a little overdressed, but hadn't changed out of his formal clothes. You also noticed that he was perched clumsily. You didn't know if it was because he was trying to keep his fancy clothes clean, or if he felt weird about something. His body was too stiff and awkward. Cove smiled sheepishly. Hi. Nice to see you, Romeo. He moved aside and let him climb inside. He cautiously stepped down by stretching his legs over. Strangely, he didn't use his hands for support. It was clear to you now, he was holding something. When he was safely on his feet, he briefly checked out his clothes, twisting around to see the back of his pants. He caught you looking and shrugged. I did go home after the event, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to settle down, so I just walked back out. Into fresh air and time away from everything. So you came over here, the person that was there? That's very smart. He paused for a moment, then raised his clasped hands together where you could see them. But then something happened, and, well, so, I have something I want to show you. If it's a fucking firefly in my house, I'm gonna kill you. Cove grinned like a child and gently unfurled his fingers, not being able to keep you in suspense for even a minute. You little shit! Get it out of my house! It doesn't go there! Stop! Get it out of my house! Carefully sitting inside was a tiny yellow light. It blinked on, off, then on again. A firefly. Delicately, he moved his hand closer to you so you can see the creature better. They're back. He closed his eyes, a smile now faintly illuminated by his insect companion. Honestly, I didn't think I'd see them this year. I don't know why. It's just they were kind of late, and I guess I've been worrying about a lot of stuff lately. You could tell that the firefly genuinely lifted his spirits. He seemed at peace. He wanted to share that with you. The fact that his first thought after discovering fireflies was to come over and celebrate the joy with you made you suddenly feel very cherished. And also very mad, because get that bitch out of my house! He opened his eyes, but he looked away, not meeting yours.
It's nice.
It's really nice, I think. Even if the fireflies disappear for a while, it doesn't mean that they're really gone. They'll come back. I can see them again. Smile. And then he looked at the firefly keenly. There was definitely something poetic about them. You felt the warmth in your heart. He looked at your face, his smile now fragile. Makes me think about the two of us. We're together, then we say goodbye, and then we're together again. Day after day, year after year, and even if our time apart gets longer, that doesn't make it forever. Viola, I'll always be there whenever you want to see me. Happy to be with him, and he needs to know that. You quietly said his name. You were so in love with him. There was nothing else you could think then, and he needed to know. Ew, I hate all of these options. I hate all of the options. They're all kind of gross in their own way. Which one is the least gross? None of the above. I'm gonna go the love route. And I guess that's what we're doing now. Your eyes started to pound in your ears, and all you can hear was blood rushing. Me when I'm mad. You arrived at Cove and found yourself fixated. Only thing you were aware of is your rapid pulse and him. It was as if your entire relationship was playing over in your head. Every step that led you here. The first time you met, back when you were little kids with no interest in your parents' attempts to make you friends, to how you ended up growing closer despite that. The first time you saw fireflies together, to the first time he snuck into your room, and then every other moment you shared, all of it came back to you. His expression had turned curious as you left him waiting, wordless. He tilted his head in question, his lips parted to speak, but you went first. Oh, fuck. With your confession, the world stopped for a second. Cove froze. No, fuck! He hates me! No! Damn it! And as if your words turned to a faucet, tears began to fall down Cove's cheeks. He silently mouthed something, but he couldn't make out a word. Cove? He got closer and closer, removing the distance between the two of you. He covered his mouth with his hand. He must have forgotten about the firefly resting there because it flew off into the night with a twinkle. He used his other hand to shakily reach over and interlace his fingers with yours. He gripped you tightly as he started sobbing harder. Bada. Finally, you took your free hand and wiped his tears away. Say it again, bitch. Cove removed his hand from his mouth and used it to hold the back of your hand. He brought your face to him and... Oh, back of your head, my bad. And your foreheads brushed together. He looked straight into your eyes. His voice trembled, it cracked and it shook. This is raw, straight from Cove's heart. Love you. Ugh. He closed his eyes tightly and repeated himself. And now he could say it firmly. Yes, love you. His aqua eyes sparkled as he opened them again. Fresh tears poured out with an outburst of emotion. Sorry. Well, I'm sorry. Sorry I can't get it together. It's just, I tried so much to love you quietly, secretly, and that being it. But I really wanted you to feel the same. I wanted you to love me back. I wanted to hear you say it. Good thing I did then, huh? I just kept thinking, what if you didn't? Maybe what I felt was too much, and I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't know what to do, but I didn't want to put any of it on you either. You weren't doing something bad. Everything you do is right and wonderful.
I'm always like this.
It wasn't your fault I had to be like that. I'm just like that. And then closer, hiding his face from you, his lips trailing over your ear. Ugh, he whispered. But you love me. You love me. He moved his head back, and his forehead was centered on yours. And he closed his eyes. He shook. The hand you still held was trembling. I'm so sorry. I'm really always like this. We're not kissing anybody because that's fucking gross. You hold him against you tightly. He leaned into your touch desperately. Ew. You feel goosebumps on his skin, and you rested your chin on his shoulder. Oh, and when you rested your head on his shoulder, you saw the little hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Cove managed to bring a fragile smile onto his face. He was still shaking, but there was something decided about him now.
I love you.
I love you, I love you. Fucking gross. He repeated it more, as if to make up for all the times he didn't let himself say it before. As he spoke, the tears dried up and his breathing became more even. The reaffirmation helped him calm down. Thank you for telling me. Cove's smile was bolder. Even his voice wavered as he ducked his head in childish shyness. He clearly fought against getting emotional again. I don't want that achievement though. The achievement was Blood Romance. Ew. I know this is a game about like finding love and dating, but I don't want that achievement on my thing. I'll just silently romance, thank you. Ugh. His watery eyes, his mused hair, the tears still drying on his cheeks. You loved him so much. So happy to have done it. Ew! That is disgusting. I could in that moment. He didn't help thinking about... and told him so. I feel like that might be too much right now. I feel like it might, so let's just go with that. Why do you pretend it wasn't true, not to yourself? You dreamed of waking up every day to him. You wanted Cove to be your partner through all that you'd experience in this world. And someday you wanted everyone to know just how much you loved him. For now, though, you were content to keep that only in your thoughts. Finally, he was able to laugh softly. The tears were nothing but salty remnants on his cheeks. He brightened up as if finally able to process the absolute joy of tonight in full. He felt good too, and it took a little more time together to simply exist in the new dynamic you had stepped into. Cove looked into your eyes with a soft, slightly shy expression. There was hope in his smile. Do you want to go to the hill with me? But there's still fireflies. It's too late, I'm tired. Me. Nodded yes. Cove brightened. He was practically bouncing at the thought of the secret excursion before he suddenly became bashful. So how should we leave? We could try the door. We don't have to do the window thing. But maybe that'd bother your family? You both chuckled at how awkward it would be if your mom's, or worse, Liz, saw you go on a midnight firefly catching trip. You'd be sure to avoid that. You can leave through your window. Let's go through the window. Cove nodded in understanding. Dressed in shoes and ready yourself for an adventure. Be glad that there was no way you'd run into another soul outside. Cove would be way overdressed, and he was still in your jammies. You let Cove go first. He stepped back on the ledge as you carefully followed. You shuffled along, and as soon as you reached the garage, you planned to use the fence from there to reach the ground. Cove jumped to the garage, then to the fence and lowered himself down. It was easy for him. He leaned against the fence and projected harsh words up to where you were waiting. Okay. Do you want help? Nodded yes. Got to the edge and let Cove spot your distance. He grabbed you about halfway down and brought you to rest firmly on the ground. Cove gave you an encouraging smile, but neither of you risked speaking yet. You briskly snuck behind the house and up to the old white poppy hill. And Cove was right. The entire hill was lit up, insects twinkling here and there in their pale yellow light. Cove let out a contented sigh, finally able to relax in full. He strode further up the hill to better enjoy the view. You walked along as well, and yourself be surrounded by the twinkling display. And without warning, Cove plopped onto his back. He paid no mind to smacking his formal attire in the grass. He put his arm under his head and stretched the rest of his limbs out. He was clearly getting quite comfortable in the dirt there. You sat down. You looked down and found a soft-looking spot to sit. You brushed some of the longer grass aside and settled in. No one of doubt will be mad about the grass stains. He touched the collar of his shirt. He didn't sound concerned, just idly curious. Oh no, I hope not. His smile bent a little, and it went silent between you. The only sounds were the rustling of bugs in the breeze, faraway crashes of waves on the sea. You couldn't help but reflect on what happened only a brief time earlier. Between this and your room, this almost felt like a different world. Was it even real? What happened between you two? You could almost be convinced it wasn't, and that you had never actually stopped dreaming. You saw a glance at Cove. He caught you and blushed. A little reddening reassured you. Cove remembered, same as you. What you had was real. Ask Cove to dance with you. Do you want to dance with me? Cove stared at you in shock at the invitation. Understandably, he had not expected that. He felt obligated to try to say more. I just like to. Cove's eyebrows crinkled and he smiled softly. Okay. You got up and brushed off your clothes the best you could. The pesky blade of grass tried to stay stuck on your leg. Cove did likewise, rubbing his hands on his pants to clean them off. Faced across from each other. Suddenly the prospect of what you were doing became more real. Cove hesitated a moment as you both tried to decide what move to make now. He smiled as he wrapped one arm around your waist and the other across your back. He pulled you closer, near enough that your bodies were touching. When you began to sway together amid the floating lights. Despite the lack of music, you found a rhythm in your movements. Back and forth. Step to the side and slide. It was relaxing and freeing. Your eyes never strayed from one another. For a time, you just existed in the moment, holding each other close and enjoying being together. The hour grew late, and the fireflies mostly dispersed, until only a few stragglers remained. Then they blinked out of sight, leaving you alone with Cove and your thoughts. Cove stole a second to release the words that had been filling his head during the quiet. We have to say this even more. He felt a great deal of happiness. Cove's expression was completely open, honest, and full of sincerity. He meant every word. He truly loved you. No matter how much it didn't seem really it was. He felt as though this was a night that would never end, but you knew it would have to, all too soon. You were only grateful to have been part of it. These were the moments to truly treasure. You would never let yourself forget them. Cool! Gross. Alright, what's next? Stu Drive. Like a lazy cat, you stretched your arms above your head and yawned. If my cat ever did that, we need an exorcist. We need somebody to help. Blinking your eyes sleepily. The day was warm and pleasant, and you were lounging on the couch in your living room, finding it difficult to do much in that moment. Your moms and Liz had gone out shopping, looking for new items and your sister to take back to decorate her college dorm with. They had asked if you wanted to go with them, but you declined. For you, today was all about relaxation. Cove had dropped by to spend some time with you, content to join in with doing nothing. The two of you had been chatting idly as you lazed around, talking about the other things you had planned for the summer. Sat on the couch while you sat on your own. When your legs tucked under a cushion and propping up against your side, it was a comfy spot. The day dragged on, you found yourself yawning more and more often between conversations. You had almost dozed off completely when a sudden buzz rang out, disturbing the silence. Your phone was on the charger in the kitchen, so it couldn't have been that. Cove pulled out his phone from the back pocket and checked the screen. It's my mom. After leaning forward and setting the phone on the coffee table in front of him, Cove hit the speaker button. Hey, what's up? Viola's here too.
Hi.
Hi, Cove. Hello, Viola. Ooh, look at her hair! Ooh, madam! Does she have a tattoo? Did she always have a tattoo? I don't think she did. Hey, Mom 3. Hi. Cool, baby, I wanted to ask you if you had a plan for all your junk. I made a small, outraged groan, giving you a sidelong glance. It's not junk, it's important. Though I couldn't see it, you can tell by the sound of her voice that Kyra was smiling. So was that yes or no about the plan? He looked up at you, his mouth pulled to a tight smile. I'm still thinking about it, Viola. I'm gonna take the phone off speakers so me and my mom can go over this. It'll be quick. Without waiting for an answer, Cove took the phone from the table and pushed himself to his feet. He hit the speaker button again to turn it off and continued the conversation with his mom as he headed toward the door. Sorry. The lock clicked behind him as he exited the house, and he sank back onto the cushions, utterly trying to decide what to do next. After electing to grab your own phone from the charger, you resumed your position on the couch, tapping away at the screen. Mind drifted away from your thoughts of Cove and his phone call, with all the many things your device could distract you. It was an effective way to kill time. You had managed to do various things when the door opened again and Cove returned. A small smile pulled at the corners of his lips as he shuffled over to the back of the couch. He reached down. He gave you one of your shoulders, a soft stroke of his hand. Hey, back. Ew. This is gross. This is also kind of gross, but not as. I kind of like this one. A flush of pink stained his cheeks, but he didn't move away. His skin was so warm and smooth. You wish you could hold on to him forever. How'd the call go?
That's...
Oh, well. He turned his head suddenly, running a hand through his hair and letting out an exasperated breath. He seemed nervous, but you couldn't imagine why. Fine. It's fine, nothing to worry about. You raised an eyebrow at his tone, moving your head to the side to try to meet his eye. That doesn't explain what's going on. He shrugged and gave you a tight smile. Trying to play whatever it actually was off as unimportant. Nothing going on, just stuff I could deal with later, some other time. He was transparently avoiding the truth, and you stared back at him seriously. The indication that you weren't going to ignore what he was doing. Eventually, he broke beneath your stare, hitting his head and his hands and groaning. I'm gonna make another trip to my mom's place. There's some stuff out there I was gonna use, so I'll have to go pick it up. It wouldn't make sense to ship it, and I couldn't bring this stuff back with me last time since I flew. Oh. Suddenly you understood what the phone conversation had been about. Cove was going to drive to his mom's house in Nevada. When would we go? Mom thinks it would be best to do it now while I'm still kind of free, but... Cove pouted, giving you an unhappy look. And you can see the prospect was already taking a toll on him. I don't want to. I was just there. And for even longer than usual. I'd have to leave now. Right now. It's our last summer like this. You can hack it. One quick trip and then it'll be all over. I guess. Looking up again, you met his bright aquamarine eyes. Finding a sad smile tugging at his lips. Oh. When his eyebrows jumped and his eyes lit up with a lamp. You could come with me! That is the creepiest face I've seen him make. Very on today. What? You should come with me. I mean, I get that just the two of us live next door to each other, and my mom lives in another state. My trips are usually to spend time with her, just the two of us. But this time it won't be like that. I'm just gonna drive over, stay for a night, then pack up the car in the morning and turn around. Most of the time will be spent in the car, so it'd be good to have another person there. Plus I'd have a chance to see my mom again, and her place. Maybe we could find something cool to break at on the way. You couldn't stop yourself from laughing at his enthusiasm. He blushed a little, reining himself in. Please? I just feel like it'd be fun. Please, can you think about it? Of course I'll come with you. And when we get a chance to think about this, I'll have to let my moms know. But as long as we got nothing else important on the days we pick, then there's no reason I wouldn't be able to go. He grinned from ear to ear, thrilled with the news.
So glad.
I'm so glad. This is so great. Call my mom back and let her know right now. We spent the day together, going over your schedules and making plans for when you can take the trip. You needed to fit it around both of your work schedules, which took a bit of doing, but came together in the end. Luckily it was only a 2-day trip, so finding a couple of free days in a row wasn't impossible. It wasn't before it wasn't long before the dates were finally set and all the plans were made. Get out with the plans. It would be a good chance for you to get out and see more of the country, and it wasn't much of an inconvenience. No matter what you thought about things, the morning when you were due to leave arrived. It was cooler than usual, the sun barely peeking over the tops of the houses. You stood outside your house on the footpath near the road, waiting for Cove. You yawned loudly, covering your mouth with the back of your hand. Mornings were always a struggle. With your travel bag clutched in one hand, you watched as Cove finished packing his car. He had organized all sorts of things, water bottles, snacks, and who knows what else. Cove insisted he had everything under control and didn't need help. At least you could rest easy, knowing that it was taken care of. As you waited, you glanced over Cove's car. You knew it well. It used to belong to Mr. Holden, and when Cove had learned to drive, it passed to him. He decided to take the opportunity to get a newer one. It was pretty old, but it served both of them well so far. I was just hoping it had enough life in it to survive the trip as long as the one you were embarking on. The slam of the door closing made you jump. You snapped back to focus and saw a Cove walking toward you. He dusted his hands off on his pants and tilted his head toward the car. That's it. Ready to go? Yeah, I'm ready. He smiled and stepped aside, giving you space to situate your own bag where you wanted it. Once everything was safely inside, he glanced back at you.
Alright.
We should get started. It's gonna be a ways to go. Gave him a high five. He returned it happily, chuckling at your enthusiasm. The two of you climbed in the car and buckled up. Cove in the driver's seat, you sitting shotgun. His eyes moved to you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for coming on this trip with me. You're welcome. After checking the mirrors and starting up the engine, you pulled out of the driveway and the trip began. With a small sigh, you got cozy in your seat and watched the familiar houses of your neighborhood pass by. Cove reached over to turn on the radio. A crackle of static mixed with odd snippets of a song filled your ears as he flipped to the stations. Mr. Holden's car was in good condition, but it was older. There was no way to plug in a phone to play music, so the radio had to do. Eventually, he settled on a classic rock station before sitting back and resting both his hands on the wheel. Is this okay? Yeah, this works. He smiled, happy with the answer. Time flew by, and with the scenery outside your window became more and more unfamiliar. None of you spoke for a good long while, but the quiet was comfortable. You had become all too used to each other's company over the years. Eventually, Cove broke the silence, clearing his throat softly before he spoke. It's been a long time since you and I have spent time with my mom. I know she still comes by the neighborhood sometimes, but it's not even once a year. I'm always going to hers. I'm happy the two of us are doing this. Yeah, me too. You up while resting on the windowsill. You gazed out at the world that was slowly coming to life as the morning rolled on by. The sun climbed higher in the sky. Luckily, the sunbeams weren't going right in your eyes. Hey, do you mind reaching back for me? Cove gave you a sidelong glance as he drove, indicating with a nod of his head and a tiny smile. Now some chips, salt and vinegar ones. You didn't comment on his selection. Switching at the seatbelt to give yourself space, you twisted in your spot and reached into the bag holding the snacks. It took a bit of effort to sort through the collection of goodies stuffed inside, but eventually a bag of chips crinkled beneath your fingers as you pulled them out and sat back in your seat. Here. Thanks. Mind opening it? His eyes lit up at the prospect of the snacks, and you shook your head in amusement, popping the top of the bag. Poured a few chips into his hand. He pulled out and went out to his hand while trying to resist the urge to look at what he was getting. You did your best to have the chips fall in his palm, but some did end up on the floor. Thanks. After that, you rolled up the top of the bag and stowed the chips safely in the back again. When you turned to the front, it was to find Cove crushing the fistful of chips into his mouth, crunching loudly. He wiped his hand on his pants absent-mindedly before gripping the wheel and spilling crumbs all over the place. You laughed at that. You couldn't stop the amused sound from escaping you, and when Cove raised a questioning eyebrow, you simply shook your head. The hours drifted by much the same as that, with the two of you snacking and chatting as the day stretched on. It was fairly calm and quiet, traveling along the open road, and you found little in the way of interruptions. At one point, you passed a "Welcome to Nevada" sign, and Cove gave a little cheer. He was in disbelief that the two of you were seriously all the way in another state like this. California's freaking massive, dude. Going to another state takes like years. Eventually, you had to stop for gas and made a detour to a small diner to grab a proper meal that didn't consist of chips and candy. But I mean, it's what I had today. But anyway, you know, when on the road, if you only have snacks, you do feel like terribly sick. So that's why it's always good, even if you do have snacks in the car, to stop and have a proper meal. Everybody remember that. You can have water, you can have soda all day long. You can have chips and candy and do the whole nine, but you have to stop at some point to have an actual meal. Even if you bring the stuff yourself, find like a rest stop or a picnic spot. Actually stop the car, get out of it, and have a proper meal. You gotta do it once in a while. After refueling both the car and your stomachs, the drive was back on. Just as the sun was beginning to dip beneath the horizon and bathing the sky in a wash of orange light. Cove informed you that there wasn't too much longer left to go. You were almost there. You took shifts driving throughout the trip. The route was fairly straightforward, and you'd had enough practice with driving to feel comfortable doing so. The night eventually fell at the blanket of darkness. The drive finally came to an end. Cove pulled into a parking lot of Kyra's apartment building, the glow of the car lights disappearing as he turned off the engine and let out a heavy sigh. We made it, we're here. Two of you exchanged tired smiles, having successfully and safely completed one half of the trip. You were relieved to have actually arrived and eager to get out of the car and stretch your legs. You took the stairs up the building together. The stairs, oh my god. After a knock, you were abruptly met with the flash of green hair as Kyra opened the door and immediately took your son in her arms. It is a tattoo, okay. There you are, my gigantic baby boy! She squeezed him for a moment and then pulled back so she could examine his face. Are you even taller than the last time I saw you? Cove gave her a fond look as she patted the tops of his shoulders proudly. I say that every time I'm here. It doesn't even make sense right now. My last visit wasn't that long ago. Kyra simply laughed before letting him go fully and ushering the two of you into her apartment. Then she turned to you, a wide grin pulling at her lips. Viola, it's so nice you came along. As a bonus, you both arrived in one piece. It's nice to see you. Kyra beamed at you both. And while you would have loved nothing more than to settle down and rest after the drive, you see she wasn't going to let you go that easy. So how's the trip? I admit I was a pinch worried. Appreciate your concern, but it was alright. You made it without a scratch. Kyra clapped her hands together, the bracelets on her wrists jingling. I'm so proud. I can hardly believe how mature you both are. Where did all those smarts come from? He ran a hand over his hair with an awkward chuckle. Oh no, maybe I got some from my parents. His mom looked at him deeply, her eyes glistening as she shook the sentimentality off with a wave of her hand. You have to be half asleep already, huh? I don't want to keep you up much longer. Early morning in any whoosies. I hate that. How do you want to deal with sleeping arrangements? I've only got my room and Cove's. The living room couch isn't bad. Marla can use my bed. I'll just sleep on the floor in the room. It doesn't matter for one night. Cove laughed out loud, startling you both. You raised your eyebrow at her outburst, giving her a quizzical look. Yeah, you'll just stay on the floor. You couldn't handle that much back when you were 13 with both your parents in the room. Oh my god. Oh, fuck. Cove blushed a dark red and gaped, completely unprepared for her to pull out that embarrassing moment from the past. Mom! Thankfully, the tension in the air dissipated as Kyra and Cove chuckled along with you. I'll take the floor. Cove shook his head, dismissing the idea immediately. You're the guest. I want to take your bed. Well, I still don't want to take it from you, and I said it first. Both of you narrowed your eyes at each other stubbornly. Kyra took it as her cue to step in. My house, my rules then. And you know who I have to side with. I'd like you to take the bed, Viola. Hesitated a moment, but it seemed you had to accept the hospitality. The small sigh you gave in. Alright. Cool. So, would it be okay with me sleeping on the floor in the room? I'd rather be there than in the open living room, even if there's a couch. Yeah, you can sleep in there. Kyra giggled softly, drawing her attention back to her. I'll find stuff aside. You need to get some sleep for tomorrow. Seems like you're setting yourselves up to not get any. I know that sounds really, capricious, but I'm the mom. I have to say these things. Come on, we're not little kids having a sleepover. We're responsible adults, right, Viola? But it's like, it's very responsible. She gave you two a suspicious look, and you stood up straighter, trying to prove your point. I'll leave you at it then, for now. Just remember that the walls are thin in this apartment. If you want to settle down and sleep, I might have to separate you. We'll be good. Perfect. Kyra clasped her hands together, the bracelets softly tingling against each other again. It's only getting later, so I'd better let you prepare for bed. She nodded toward the hallway and gave you a small smile. I'll play hostess for a sec and show you where the restroom is first, Viola. And where you'll be staying the night. Thank you. You hoisted your travel bag over your shoulder and followed behind Kyra into the hallway. Cove shuffled along behind you, disappearing into the bedroom while his mom let you go to the restroom. The apartment was small, but nicely decorated in soft, cool colors, with plenty of artwork hanging on the walls to give it character. It's not bad. It's a pretty good room. It was stylish and exactly what you would have expected from someone like Kyra. Okay, this room is so... I don't know about this one. After being shown to the restroom and wishing Kyra good night, you headed to the room and found Cove already there. He had changed to his sleepwear for the night as well. Looking around, you found the bedroom looked much the same as the rest of the apartment, with small ocean elements that you were sure Cove must have enjoyed while he stayed here. All in all, the room was pretty and clean. It almost looked more like a hotel guest room than a bedroom. Cove only spent a few weeks out of the year here, so it made sense that it wasn't especially lived in.
So.
What the fuck is that? What the hell is that? Is that supposed to be a bird? Fuck. What do you think? It's pretty nice. Mom always keeps it clean and everything, even when I'm not here. Oh my god. This is a creeper. Cool, I'm glad you like. What the fuck am I looking at? You seem pleased enough to. With a response that gave you a small smile before opening the zip of his bag. When you went back to the room, you jumped into bed under the covers, just as Cove was shuffling to a sleeping bag on the floor. You waited until he settled in before you flipped the lights off. A soft glow from the outside peeking through the blinds, casting shadows over the room. Shadows. You closed your eyes up, blocking everything out.
Night.
Night. Good night. Fucking hate that shirt. The room grew quiet as the two of you wound down for the night. You found yourself listening to the sounds of the city outside the window. You noticed that they were so different from what you were used to back home. However, zooming past the people out having fun instead of crashing waves and ocean sounds, cocooning your house in their embrace. Quick shifted right a sleeping bag, making the fabric crinkle loudly. I've outgrown this thing. I should have checked it earlier, but the ship was kind of short notice. Why don't we share? It's big enough. He opened held deeply, the fabric of the sleeping bag crinkling loudly as he fidgeted beneath. I told my mom I was going to stay on the floor. He frowned, wondering if that had ever stopped him before. Did you really plan on going through with that? No. You hesitated a little, the silence stretching between you. You couldn't help but smile to yourself. You knew him well. The sleeping bag rustled again, and through the dim light you saw him stand and head toward the bed. I fucking hate that shirt. I just keep staring at it. It is so bad. He took a deep breath as he ran his hands across the top of the blanket, gathering his nerves as his eyes met yours. Then he paused, head tilted to the side, as if silently asking permission. You nodded. He shuffled over to make room for him as he pulled the bedding up and crawled beneath the covers, leaving the two of you close together, but not quite touching. He exhaled a heavy breath as he lay on his side, his head getting comfy in the pillow next to yours. Your stomach clenched, feeling nervous suddenly. He was so close to you, you could feel his warmth beneath, his warm breath tickling the side of your face. He raised his... Don't fucking touch me! Stop! His hands raised... He raised his fingers to delicately brush the tips over your cheeks, drawing a shaky sigh from your lips. His touch was warm and feather-like, making you feel tingly all over you. When his eyes met yours again, you found yourself lost in them, but becoming still and silent around you. And he froze, his muscles tensing as he closed up like a clam and his breath hitched in his throat. He tried to whisper something, but it was completely lost on you. With that having to suffice as a warning, Cove jumped out over the bed and crouched down on the floor. His head held in his hands as he took a few deep, stuttering breaths. He stood upright in bed, staring at you with a mixture of alarm and amusement. You okay?
I'm always like this.
I thought it'd feel like it did before when we were younger, but it's different now. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm just so... Ew! 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 He panted deeply in and out as though he had just finished running an entire marathon. And after setting his breath in one rhythm, he crawled back into his sleeping bag and huddled down on the floor, his back turned to you. Sorry. We're not pleased. No one could frustrate you like Cove Holden could. Didn't say anything. That's how you laid back on the bed alone. The next day dawned, bringing the sound of birds chirping happily outside the window. And I slowly laying just to the light as you tried to recall where you were. Remember the familiar sight of Cove's second bedroom. Cove had nudged you awake. I fucking hate that shirt. Alright, Sean. Cove shook your shoulder and you groaned dramatically and buried your head beneath your pillow. 5 more minutes.
No way.
No way! You gotta get started. Sitting in bed, you let out a yawn and stretched your arms above your head. You still felt pretty groggy. You were used to sleeping in longer than this, and late nights hadn't helped. Morning. You were completely different wavelengths right now. Pulled yourself out of bed, grabbing a fresh change of clothes and your toiletries before heading to the restroom. After all that, you met Cove back in his room. You were sitting on the floor when you entered, sorting through a bunch of stuff in a box, determining what to bring and what to leave behind. Hey.
Hey.
Hey, can you pull the stuff in those drawers? You nodded, though he didn't even look up from his task, so you knew he wouldn't have seen. Heading over to the drawers, you started the task of taking out various items and setting them on the ground in front of Cove. After a while, it became clear to you that Cove was acting strange whenever you went near him, just flinching over your presence. It happened a few more times before you couldn't take the awkwardness any longer. You dropped the stuff that you were holding in front of him and raised a questioning eyebrow. Is everything okay?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It's just... I'm sorry about last night, again. Hardly squeaked the second part of his thought. Oh, not staying in the bed with you. I know you just want to be with me, with your own boyfriend, and not have to feel bad about wanting that, being rejected over it. Shouldn't have to, but I do it anyway. He swallowed thickly. Ew. Struggling to find the right words to explain himself. I do think it felt nice, really. Really! And it's just not bad, but good in a inconvenient way.
I mean,
Hanging together like that, being so close, it gets too hot, you know? Cheeks flushed with color, and he immediately trailed off, his eyes firmly fixed on the floor. It was too intense for you, huh? Maybe I'm the one who should apologize. That's wine, a pink tinge creeping onto his cheeks before he could duck his head enough to hide away.
well,
Just don't worry about it. You don't need to do anything. Let's get back to packing. With it more or less resolved. No, it wasn't. He went to grab more items as Cove focused on the box in front of him once again. Dots. Oh, hey, look at that. When you turned toward the sound of Cove's voice, you found him digging through one of the drawers beneath the bed.
neat.
There's something I definitely need to bring. Neat. Craning your head, you got a glimpse of what he was holding. It was an old yellowing book. You opened it up. There were a few dried pressed leaves between the pages. Those were the gifts you'd given him from his mom's place. Something for him to remember you by, and to make his time here less lonely. Kept them the whole time. Started to feel emotional. I've looked up at you when you sniffled quietly, seeming concerned. You wiped away your tears that were building in your eyes, feeling a little silly. Sorry. Called out you, his face softening. No apologize for. It's alright, it's wonderful. Thanks.
Nice.
These are special. It was important, having a piece of you with me while we were apart. I feel the same way, that's why I gave them to you. Cove smiled, pleased that the feeling was mutual, but the expression became more amused. Did you get the souvenirs I brought back? Of course. His grin grew to completion. The word is completion. I know how to read. Thanks. Another hour passed by in silence, and you were happy to see that you were making great progress in Cove's room, with only the closet left to sort through. I think that's where I need to end the episode here. I'm gonna go ahead and do so. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully, I'll see you later.